What is up? It is Saturday night. This is the second video for the night, and obviously, I'm not commuting because I'm sitting here in the home office. I went to CrossFit this morning, but I drove with my wife, and I jokingly said to her, "So, what are we vlogging today?" And she said, "Why are you driving separately from me?" And I said, "No, that was the joke. Like, you're gonna be in the vlog. What are we vlogging?" She's like, "No," but it's funny because I bought two of these mics, so if there's ever a day where she's up for it, we'll get around to code commute, but it's gonna be a struggle. I'm gonna answer a question that came in from LinkedIn, and this one's gonna be about visibility. I think it's a good question. This is still something that I am navigating. So I'm gonna preface this entire conversation with the fact that like some of the other things I talk about, I feel much more comfortable. I never really like saying like, "Hey, I'm an expert on this," but I might have a lot of lived experiences where I can say, "Hey, here's handful of different things that I've lived through, some different perspectives on it that I've had, and I'm happy to share." And this time it's going to be a little bit more about some of my experiences, some perspective, but I don't even feel like I'm at a point where I have this solved and then I can like educate people on it. So that's the framing for this. But we're going to be talking about visibility with respect to performance at work and what that looks like with regards to promotions and things like that. So I think it's a great question. I wanted to say thanks to the user for submitting it. This was on LinkedIn, so they reached out to me. Profile should be open, so that's Nick Cosentino on LinkedIn, or look for Dev Leader on social media. And if you just want questions answered and you don't care if they're private, just a general question, just leave them in the comments below the video. Happy to go answer that for you. Um, okay, I think let's dive into it. So a little bit of context about this individual. Just so you know where they're coming from, right? So software engineer, 3 years full stack at a big company in Canada. So it's not like a startup or anything. It's a pretty large size company. It doesn't matter what company it is. Um, some visibility challenges they've had are they're a mid-size. He works on a mid-sized team with limited interaction with leadership. So like the sort of the person that's at the head of their sub organization. Decision makers at promotion roundtable don't know me. Okay. And limited in office presence, which is that's not even something that I was thinking of, but I think that this is a good one to bring up. Um, they're mentioning that they have had five, this says commendations, but maybe that, I don't know if that's a word or I don't know it. Recommendations, I'm just going to assume recommendations from managers, peers for collaboration. Awesome. So they're a good sort of team player. Consistently reviewed as operating at the next level, top contributor in their current project. So like, and I have no reason to doubt this person. I don't know them. But like, I think that that's fair that we can believe that. So there is just some kind of framing, at least for this individual, right? Um, so the fact that they're asking me this, if you like, this might be something where you kind of relate to that. I've had challenges around visibility as well, which is what I'll be discussing, right? So this person said, in your video on increasing your luck surface area, you mentioned your dislike for visibility as a career metric and the trade-offs it entails. That was right at the end of the video too. So thanks for watching right to the end. But so I said, often at the cost of engineering efforts. And he said, this deeply resonated with me as someone who's been told I'm performing at the next level, but has missed promotions seemingly due to a lack of visibility. Okay, so hopefully that's enough framing. And I'm going to try to get into some of these details. So, uh, the context that I have in my career, again, if you're kind of new here or need a reminder, I worked at a startup company that grew into a pretty successful business and got to see that kind of transform from like just a few people, like a handful, to um, over the 8 years to like, hundreds of people. So really cool to be part of that growth. But I had the luxury of not ever having to worry about visibility with respect to impact. And that's because from the beginning, I had a lot of autonomy given to me from the founder and the CEO. The founder is the CTO, but both the CTO and CEO, a lot of trust and respect with me. And I had a lot of trust and respect with them. They gave me a lot of autonomy. It's not like they just said like, "Hey, go do whatever you want," but like, "Hey, here's the direction we need you to go in," and they kind of gave me that room. So I always and like I didn't have any other responsibilities outside of work. I could just keep working. So I spent the first like 8 years of my career just being able to like deliver value, right? Like and high impact stuff because it was a very small company at the beginning. So I just had all of these opportunities to keep exercising this kind of stuff. So the first 8 years of my professional career after internships, it honestly just felt like I never had to worry about this stuff. I didn't have to think about it, if that makes sense. It never crossed my mind that something like visibility would be a limiting factor at any point in my career, right? Let me do good work and I will show you what I'm capable of. That's kind of been the mindset that I've had because it's worked for me. So if you tell me what needs to get done and you empower me to do it and give me the room to do it, I will deliver. And I work really hard. Like it's like the kind of like my work ethic is one of the things that I'm very proud of. And like I would love to be able to say to people like no one's going to outwork me kind of thing. Like I will put in, I will grind. It's like I take my content creation the same way, right? Like I've done like over 400 YouTube videos in 2 years, and this year's going to be ridiculous. Like I was doing like 3 YouTube videos a week. I'm doing 15 YouTube videos a week right now between my two channels. It's nuts. The point is like when I get into something and you give me autonomy, I will do good work. That's how I operate. So visibility has never been a challenge. Now, with that said, going to a much and this is like how things really changed for me. When I went to Microsoft, so that was just under 5 years ago now. Obviously, this is a completely different dynamic. Not only did I go from being in person at a company that I was there like basically since the beginning to a company that I was working remote, and obviously Microsoft is redonkulously big, right? Like I will never meet all of the people in my organization ever. It's nuts. It's huge. So with that said, the opportunity for visibility, like that's actually something that I just don't get for free now. So to kind of focus on some of the things that this person brought up, um, like I want to make sure that I can talk about the limited in-office presence. So I'm going to come back to that one a little bit later. Um, the mid-sized team with limited interaction with leadership. This might be where I kind of start my focus. So the and as I talk through this, I'm going to be sharing my experiences from Microsoft, and this isn't like at no point when I go to describe this is anything a knock on Microsoft. I very much enjoy my time at Microsoft. So this is me explaining things. If it sounds like there's frustration coming through, it's not directed at individuals, it's not directed at Microsoft. This is just like me kind of learning about how to exist in big tech, if that's making any sense. So when I started at Microsoft, it was remote in Canada. And then, so I had a really supportive manager, I had a really supportive skip level manager. And then I ended up moving down to the US. But my job was still basically remote. They moved me down and I lived on the edge of campus. If I took a step across the street, I was on the Microsoft campus, which is kind of funny. But my entire team was still like not in the office and it was locked down in the beginning anyway. So I moved across the entire continent to Microsoft and then worked remote. Pretty funny. Um, but had a very supportive manager, very supportive skip level manager. And then within a few months, my manager moved over to another team. And so I feel like he set me up very well, right? He gave me the things that I need to work on. I had a good working relationship with my skip level manager, kind of like, here's the domain I'm responsible for. And it honestly kind of felt like the close to the situation I described at the startup. Obviously not the same working relationship, but it was like, hey, like here's your charter, and like I trust that you're going to do a good job. So, you're going to be learning and ramping up. He told me it was going to take me 1 full year to feel confident, and he wasn't wrong. So, so he set me off, right? Go do good things, and he ended up moving to a different team. But this left a period of time. I guess I don't know. Was it like just after a year in or something like that? But this left a period of time where I didn't have a direct manager, and it meant that I would be kind of like reporting into my skip level, which for me, in theory, I was kind of like, hey, that's maybe not such a bad thing. Like my skip level is like he's great to work for. I actually still have interactions with him now across different teams, which is really cool. Um, but again, like he was the same kind of uh, situation for me, right? Where it was like I felt like he had a lot of trust in me. He knew that I was like new to Microsoft, so there's going to be stuff that I have to navigate. But here's your charter. I know you know it. Go deliver. So in my head, I was like, maybe that's not so bad. Not like, don't get me wrong. I really liked working for my manager, but maybe it's not so bad because I have a really supportive skip. And the reality is now I'm talking directly to someone who's a higher level. So like maybe that's actually not bad. Um, so I just continued to work on the things that were asked of me, right? Like here's your charter, go deliver, and I was delivering. And even with my manager being there, it was like receiving above target. So I was basically performing above expectations. So that was good. And I just kind of continued to operate at that level. And then I was given even more responsibility. So I was given an entire second team. And this team was given to me in a state, and this isn't saying anything negative of the team or even the previous manager, but the previous manager was setting this team up to run out of China, essentially. But the problem is that we don't operate that way. So we follow the sun in terms of supporting our infrastructure. So this team that I inherited had been significantly downsized. Okay, so I inherited this team that was very much in like a problem state. Again, no fault of anyone's, just given the different dynamic of how this team needed to be operated. So now I had two teams, right? And it was like, okay, like you got to make this work. So I did. And then I focused on that. So now I had these two teams and we had to move forward on things. And then I ended up getting a new manager and we had a really good working relationship. And she actually was having conversations with me to basically say, like, I know, like, this is the trajectory. And was, kind of get to this, but she would put me, like, over the next year and a bit that we worked together, she would go to put me up for promotion. And that's because she had told me the things from my skip level, that what's expected of me, and we had good alignment, and I was doing them. So, where I'm going with this is that I was given more responsibility. I continued to deliver on the things I was asked to do, and then finally when it came time for promotion, my manager did put me up. And so for me this is a huge step, because if you're at a point where your manager isn't comfortable putting up for promotion, it's because they don't feel that they have enough sort of, I don't like using the word ammunition, but they don't have enough like confidence in their ability to defend putting up for promotion. Because they should feel like they can talk about all of your accomplishments, all of these things. And then when people question it or say, well, what about X or what about Y? Like you should be able to say yes. And like, here's a really good example. Or when they're saying like, what are some of the biggest growth areas they've had? Or what are some of their biggest challenges? They should feel confident they can like kind of defend you in those conversations. And basically the result of those conversations was not enough visibility. And that feedback to me really bothered me. And I kind of talked about this in the video that this person's referencing. It really bothered me because I was like, well, what do you mean not enough visibility? Because if I'm being told that these are the important things to work on, they're either the wrong things because people don't see them, or they're like, or there's something like kind of fundamentally wrong about how we're approaching like promoting people. If I'm doing the important stuff and someone's like, oh yeah, but the people making the decision don't know about it, then go put the people that know about it in the position to make the decision. Kind of a weird dynamic. So me hearing that, and this isn't like a, I don't know the right word. It's not like me like in spite, right? I'm not trying to do this in spite, but it's like the question that comes to my mind is like, well, if I'm doing good work and I've been told I'm doing good work, if I need to increase my visibility, like what does that mean? Do I just need to make sure that I'm sharing updates with other people? And so this is a really difficult thing for me to navigate because I'm like, do I spend more time not doing the important work because I need to be trying to make it more visible? So now I'm spending time making things visible. I'm like, this just doesn't feel like a good use of time. So the learning that I had, I actually reached out. I did a couple things. I reached out to another group engineering manager, so sort of I don't know what you call it. No, I don't want to say like the tier above me, but like sort of that's a role that's above me. Okay, they're the manager of managers, and I reached out to one from partner teams I was working with, and I said, "Hey, look, like I actually work with like 3 or 4 people from your sub teams." And I said, I'm trying to put my, like, basically get promoted. And I was curious if you had any feedback for me. And they were absolutely awesome. Not only did they give me their direct feedback, but they went and talked to the different sub teams, the managers, and sort of like principal engineers from those teams, and drafted an email that had feedback from those people to basically, document like Nick has impact and I can see it, and like therefore some visibility. So that was a really helpful thing, I think. And what I did after that to try and like get a better understanding of visibility is I reached out to another sort of like partner level group engineering manager that I don't like work like very close with, but I've had some interactions with. And I said, hey, like random question, but like you've been at Microsoft for a while, like you probably understand these things very well. So I said, can we talk about visibility and like kind of what that means? Um, so the way that he was framing visibility that I thought was very helpful for me was like, it's not just about like doing work. So do whatever work that is aligned to the business or not, whatever work that you're doing, it's not just about like emailing out and giving status updates so like people hear about it. He's like, sure, that like that can help increase awareness of what's going on. But he said often when people are talking about visibility, it's that the like it's almost like the work itself should the impact of it should speak to the visibility. So basically, even if you're doing good work, if it's not at an impactful enough level, then people that are making decisions about promotions don't have visibility into it. So it's almost like the scope of the work I'm doing does not have significant enough impact. So the way that I interpret that is actually the stuff that I was tasked with was not of significant enough importance for the business to be able to justify promoting me. Now, is that my manager's fault? I don't think so. Is that my skip level manager's fault? Like he was part of kind of aligning that like charter for me? I don't think so. But I think, and like this is kind of why it's a bit of a frustrating thing. I think that this is a bit of like a bureaucracy politics kind of thing in larger companies. Now, one of the things that makes this really difficult is that not only did I have a change in managers, but we actually moved out from under my skip level manager and we had a new like a I had a new skip level manager and a new manager. And then our entire product side of the organization reorged as well. So as much as people say that when you change managers, there should be continuity and sort of like, I don't know, the visibility into the work you're doing. I very much felt like I lost that channel of visibility. So, in terms of the impact I was doing, is basically like people had my manager and my new skip level had to learn about the stuff that I was tasked with. They had to go learn and understand what impact I would be having. So, I personally, and I'm not blaming them, but I think that something like a reorg in my situation was extremely unhelpful with respect to visibility. So, knowing what I know now, what I probably could have done a better job of is during those times where like I have a new manager, new skip level, the work that I was doing that was important, I probably should have been communicating more and explain, like almost like educate. I don't want to say educating them because that makes it sound like they're, I don't know, like not intelligent or something. But I just mean like demonstrating, catching them up to speed on the significance of that work, so that they don't have to, because they have to learn so many things when they're coming on board. Like I have the team I'm responsible for. My manager has me with my team plus more, and the skip level has like a bigger umbrella. So there's just way more for them to try and get up to speed on. But I think I could have done a better job. And it's not just the status updates, like, hey, look, we're at like 75%, now we're 90% done, but more about like when the work is landing and the impact it has, being able to say, hey, look, big milestone achieved. Here's why this is so impactful. And I think I could have done a better job broadcasting that, not necessarily to the other teams, but almost just up through my manager and my skip. And I think that that could have been something that was more helpful. So that's kind of my experience with that at Microsoft. Um, Going to a new team at the beginning of 2024, I switched teams. And what's interesting about this dynamic now is my direct manager is like the same level as my skip level manager before. So, and then my skip level is like, I don't even know. They have like the same job title, so I don't know whose level is higher kind of thing, but it doesn't matter. I have two people in my reporting chain that are very understanding of how a lot of this works. And what's really cool is when I came onto the team, my manager has been so supportive of trying to align me with work that he knows is very high visibility from a business impact perspective. And what's been great about that is that he's kind of like thrown me into the deep end on it, saying like, this is like one of these common themes that I really actually appreciate. It sometimes like it feels kind of scary, right? But I will deliver. It's scary, but like that's my track record, and I know how I operate, so I will go deliver on those things. Um, and they trust me to do that. So it's cool just to know that I'm supported in that way. So the tricky part is like I had to switch managers, right? So again, does it reset your progress? People say no, but I'm like, I think it does. I absolutely think it does. In this case, maybe not back to zero when I switch teams, but I do think that it has a huge impact on sort of your progression in terms of the impact that you've had. For example, I don't know if anyone knows or understands any of the impact I had in the past 2 years, aside from the last year of work, because there isn't continuity in it, as much as people try. Okay, so that's been my experience. Um, I think going forward and like what I've been trying to do in terms of increasing visibility is number one, that alignment with my manager, I think is critical. So you hear me talk about this all the time in my videos. Having level set expectations is key. And in this case, my manager understands that for me to be able to get promoted, it's not just about doing the good work, but it's about aligning it with impactful work. So he's been very transparent about that's a requirement for me, and that's why he's aligning that kind of work with my responsibilities. So um, that's like what I'm trying to say is for you in your case, like have conversations with your manager about it. If you know that visibility is a challenge, bring that up. Like and it's not like which manager or which, I don't know what titles you have in the organizations you're working in, like senior manager, group engineering manager, which ones are going to see this. It's not about like who's seeing it, like specifically. It's more that like the impact of the work you're doing is significant enough that people are aware of it. That's like the main takeaway. So like when you're having conversations with your manager about your priorities, try to bring that up in the conversation. Like, hey, like I know we're talking about that I have to do this project or lead this project, or if you're a manager yourself and you're like, I have to, help these teams lead these projects. Can we talk about the business impact of those and the significance in like that impact across the organization? Because it's not that you should just say, well, no, I'm not doing it then, but you may want to say, hey, in order for me to get promoted, like, when it comes to visibility, is this significant enough impact? Now, unfortunately, like I would say that I would want to just trust my manager in that. Um, that didn't work in the previous case for me, right? And I don't like it's not her fault. I think she was doing, and she put me up for promotion, so she felt confident in it. But you might be in a similar situation where your manager's like, I think that this is sufficient, and it happens to not be. But again, it's feedback, and then you can take that and you can try to improve on it. So, okay, like what's the next project? Can we make sure that this one is has enough impact, or you're continuing projects and the efforts are landing on those ones, and now you can say like, look, I've landed this impact. So I think there's opportunities there, but communication with your manager, level set expectations and that stuff, it's something that will always come up on this channel. I won't shut up about it. So I think that's one thing. And now I'm making sure that I am doing a little bit more communication on a regular basis with stakeholders. Again, I said at the beginning of this video, I don't think that that's necessarily like the trick to it, but I'm practicing it because that means that I also have to keep bringing it up to my manager. It means when I'm having conversations with my skip level manager, like these things are top of mind for me. I have more collaboration with some of our higher level product managers now as well. So like they know I'm working on this stuff, and like the point is that there's more surface area of people that I'm talking to about the work that I'm leading. So I think that that really helps from a visibility perspective. Um, okay, so a lot of this I realize this is like my experience, but I kind of told you at the beginning of this, it's mostly going to be me kind of chatting through that. Decision makers at Promotion Roundtable don't know me. I want to come back to this part right now because this is kind of what I experienced in that first phase I was talking through. Apparently, the people who were making the decision about my promotion, they were like, well, we don't really know what work Nick is doing. And it's like, well, uh, so I think that's one of those examples, kind of where I was saying if you're doing some effort to articulate the impact to the organization, that could be, I don't know, like some teams do newsletters. It's one example where it's like a monthly newsletter, bi-weekly newsletter, just to give some updates. Not like, hey, we checked in these commits or something, but like this is the impact that we've landed. Like that might be a really good opportunity to start communicating some of that more broadly. Um, so there's an opportunity. And then the other thing too is like if you might notice that if you're not working on projects that are cross team at the level where this is probably expected for visibility, like that might be a good conversation to have with your manager. Like, hey, like I know I'm doing all this work within the team and stuff, but like even if you're doing work within the team, maybe it's actually helping other teams or like unlocking some capabilities where they can integrate and stuff with you, whatever it happens to be. But if you're not aware or you're not, yeah, maybe I'll say it this way. If you're not aware of like who the other stakeholders on these different teams are that you're impacting, like maybe have a conversation with your manager to understand that better and then go reach out to them, right? And if your manager's like, ah, yeah, that's really only for us or whatever, like maybe have conversations about, hey, like for my next project, is there something I can do cross team or something that has impact that looks like this? Because what I'm trying to say is you might be able to create some opportunities for yourself to go have conversations with those other stakeholders, like literally, like get on a call, get to know them, and then maybe you establish a little bit of a cadence with keeping them updated on some of the project status and stuff, just so like instead of saying like, hey, the people that are at the round table making the decision don't know me, it's like, okay, well, try to increase that opportunity where that's happening. It's not a bulletproof solution. I'm not here to give you made up solutions to things. I'm just trying to say like that might be something that helps. Certainly something that I will be trying in the future, right? If it comes up again. Okay, the last one here is limited in office presence. This one's interesting. I think that this is going to be very situational, and it kind of means like it's going to be a bit of a generic answer here. But I don't. My personal belief is that I don't want to feel that being in office is required for any of this stuff. If we are remote companies and we support remote workers, it shouldn't matter. Caveat, I think that it does a little bit. And this goes back to the title of the video that this person was referring to, and it's like increasing the surface area for luck, which is a shitty thing to have to kind of bring up when we're talking about promotions. Now, this is how I would put this. At least in my situation, I have a lot of confidence in my manager aligning me with work that's valuable. Okay, so that's if we park that, let's pretend that's on the side. If I were to say, okay, for my skip level manager and potentially his peer on the product side, how often am I having chat conversations with them? You won't know. The answer is like it's not that often. And if I were never in the office, that's the only exposure I'm really having with them. So it better be the case that my manager is sort of managing up to them and talking about his team, including me, and on the stuff that I'm doing. But that's just one pathway of communication. So when I talk about the surface area of luck here, when I go into the office, I'm literally in the same big room as the skip level on the product side and the skip level in my work. So I get to have conversations with them. They know me and the work that I'm doing, and we have conversations about it. And they'll talk about some strategic things. It's like, hey, like this is why this work's important when this work's wrapped up. Like this is the direction we're going. So like it's not about even me rely like, and I totally trust that my manager would be having those conversations, but it's almost like I don't have to rely on that because I'm also creating those opportunities. I am increasing my surface area. Hopefully not because it's luck, but I hope you get the idea behind that. So I I do go into the office, as you might know, because it's code commute, except obviously not the moment. But I go in because number one, it's actually helpful for me to get FaceTime with my team. Number two, I think there's some really good conversations in terms of just like being creative, sitting down and like whiteboarding stuff that I really appreciate. And number three, like I get some of this opportunity to meet with people that I otherwise wouldn't have FaceTime with that can be very impactful. So this is me kind of saying out loud, like I feel like there is an advantage to getting some FaceTime. It's not that it's not that you cannot create those opportunities in other ways, but for me, and like my personality and like the way that I reach out to people and stuff on teams and that kind of thing, like it would be harder for me. There might be other people that are totally good at like creating those opportunities remotely. A very It's going to sound like a tangent, but a comparable thing that I brought up before is new employees when they onboard. Most of them that I've found that are remote have a very difficult time. The ramp up's kind of slow, but some of them I've seen are absolutely awesome. And they're the ones that are willing to reach out and get conversations going, get unblocked. I feel like for me, in terms of communicating to my skip and to other stakeholders and stuff, like if I saw them in the office, it would be way easier. But remote, I'm like, it's just not happening. So anyway, I think that it's advantageous for me to do it. I'm not saying that it's like an unfair advantage necessarily, but it works better for me. So I think that that is something that can help. Um, but yeah, honestly, like the visibility stuff is tricky. The way that I try to get my head out of thinking like, hey, this is just distracting from engineering stuff is going back to the fact that the work itself needs to be impactful at a scale where people are going to see it and have visibility into it. Not necessarily just like I'm going to keep blasting out every time a commit goes in and tell everyone it's done. Um, but if you want to improve the odds of that visibility, I do think that summarizing impact and sending it out to stakeholders could be very valuable. So some options there. Um, I hope this helps. I realize it's not like a Nick's 3 simple steps to visibility and yay. But sometimes I think chatting through this stuff and having different perspective about what someone else has gone through. Hopefully you listen to this and you're like, like if you've experienced something like this, maybe that resonated and you feel better about your experience, or you have some ideas. And if you haven't been through something like this with visibility, being a restriction, kind of like the beginning of my career. I'm hopeful that this is something that at least is now in your head where you're like, I wonder if my situation changes. This is something I need to think about. So I think it's the best I got on this one, but I hope that helps. If you have other questions, please leave them in the comments or send me a message, Dev Leader on social media, or Nick Cosentino on LinkedIn. Just send me a message and we'll chat soon. Take care.